Hello, wonderful humans, and welcome to what I'm super excited about. I can barely contain myself. I'm really excited because we're starting to talk about the Dragon Reborn, and I loved this. I was taken so off guard by so many things. I loved it, and I'm really excited that we get to talk about it. So today, we're going to be talking about Prologue. I'm going to be talking about, you can talk about it in the comments. We're going to talk about Prologue to the end of chapter 6. And just for your forward planning, if you want to do this, I'll be roughly talking about 7 chapters each video. Roughly, I think one of them I'll have to do 8. But that's the plan, 7 chapters per video. And the plan, in case you are new here, welcome. Every video that I do for these books, I am reading from my notebook. Halfway through the Dragon Reborn, I'll be swapping to my new notebook because I filled this one up. I take this notebook, I read a chapter, and then I write down 1 page, no more than 1 page, of thoughts, my thoughts after I finish reading each chapter. I do not read the next chapter. I have no idea what's coming. I literally sit down and record everything I'm thinking. Not everything. I record the major things that I'm thinking about, the things that have caught my attention. I miss things. Doesn't mean, just because I don't write it down, doesn't mean I didn't notice it. It just wasn't something that caught my attention in the same way. So there are lots of things I sit there and think, oh, that's just a plot point. That we'll come back to that. I'll talk about that another time. In this one, in the Dragon Reborn, I think towards the end of my chapter notes, I started picking up on some things later, and so I refer back to previous chapters and a little bit of that, but I try to avoid that just because I don't have the time and space on the page. And I am really trying to limit myself. I could talk longer, I know I could, and I know some of you would be very happy to hear every thought that I had. Maybe not every thought, but the point of the matter is I don't want to make this any more difficult to read than it is. Already I'm finding, and I'm loving it, don't get me wrong, but it's more challenging to read a chapter and stop and write down my thoughts than it is to just sit down and read the book straight through. I probably would have these books very close to being finished completely if I was reading at my normal pace. I would easily read this in a week in my normal reading style, but because of the way that I'm reading, it's taking me a month to read it. So I'm only writing a page of notes. If I write any more than that, even though I sometimes I really want to, it would take too long. So I'm going to get started. Today, we'll start with the prologue, Fortress of Light. I feel like it's an overdue welcome to the game for the children of the light. They've been present, yes, we've seen them around, we've had interactions with them, but it felt as if they're there by accident and more of a subplot. And there's still a little bit of a subplot, but now they feel like they're becoming slowly a bigger part of the story. And I like that. That's welcome, children of the light. It's nice for you to join the game. But Pedron Neil, with his desire for glory, is ready to jump in headfirst with very little information, or at least without the full picture. And that's never a good thing. I'd say it's safe to assume that Ordith is Fane. I think that's fairly clearly set up. Why someone who appears intelligent like Neil would trust him is anyone's guess. Like, that probably doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, other than the fact that that desire for glory and going out with a bang. But he has fact-checked in a way, in his own way, what Ordith has told him through Baia and Caridon. So he hasn't just believed him without any background check, and I think that's probably really important. That makes it more believable that he'd be going along with this, because there's a lot of sources confirming what he's hearing. And Ordith's knowledge has made him feel ahead of everyone else, something that would appeal to a strategic man like Neil. I think that is really, it's appealing to his sense of ego, his desire for glory, and it does make sense. It just also doesn't. But it does. I can see exactly why it's happened. But seriously. Ordith is obviously, and I'm calling him Ordith because I while I am fairly certain that we basically got confirmation that it's Fane. I don't think they actually referred to him as Fane. I don't think. It was a while ago. It was a month ago since I read this. Ordith is obviously trying to take out revenge on Rand and the other two through the children. He's planted some seeds that I hate to say it, but they're believable. What he's saying does line up. An isolated place like the Two Rivers would be a good place to lay low as a dark friend. Not great if you're wanting to get involved in the politics and really control things, but if you're wanting to lay low, it makes sense. I guess that's Mordeth more so than Fane the Peddler. Just the intelligence level. I'm not saying that Fane the Peddler isn't or didn't have some intelligence, but I'd say that this is Mordeth's influence. Carradin's motives for being a dark friend are a little bit more unclear at this stage. I'm sure that we'll get more insight into that. It's probably power, like most people or most dark friends. And he seems to take pleasure out of his role as Inquisitor. I assume he's one of the dark friends from the Great Hunt prologue. I may reread that again. I keep saying I'm going to reread it. I did reread it, but I might have to go back and look at that again. He seems like a real sadistic creep, so that more than anything else lines up with him being a dark friend. Otherwise, his motivation is a little bit unclear, but that makes sense because I don't think we should always know a character's motivation right up front. I think sometimes we need to learn it, and I'd say we will learn more about Carradin at some point. Fane's plan for Rand contradicts the Dark Lord's, setting him apart from sort of that big Dark Lord plan, and that has me super curious about how that's going to unfold. Is Ordith Fane, are they going to be working against the Dark Lord at any point, working alongside, working completely separately? I just think that's really super intriguing to set up this other darkness, I suppose, that may be some way connected, but maybe only so much as their goals and their plans line up. I'm really fascinated to see how that unfolds. I mean, I'm super worried about what's going to happen, but I'm really, really fascinated to see Fane and what happens next with him. Chapter 1, Waiting. Now, this chapter had a lonely tension to it. I just thought that was probably the best way to describe it. It was really tense, but it also felt really, really lonely. The description of the landscape around them sounds isolated and so cold. I really wouldn't want to be there. But also the slow pace, the tension of waiting for something to happen is incredibly present. And it's beautifully done, a really great way to set the tone for the book. I had wondered how the Shinarans would react to the young age of Rand and crew and their less experience, their obvious lack of experience. But it appears, at least towards Perrin, they've accepted him as one of them and clearly see his value, both due to his wolf skills, not that they know that that's what they are, and his bow skills. So they've seen what he can offer through his tracking in the previous book and his skills that he's shown maybe in the hunting and things like that. So I think that's great, because I'd say Perrin's going to need friends. They all need friends, but it's good to know that people are seeing Perrin's worth. I think Perrin is fantastic, and I love that people are seeing his worth. Massima is still the one to win over, though. I think he just has a natural suspicion or naturally suspicious nature, and Perrin's going to have to work hard to win his respect. I'm intrigued. Massima, again, is just one of those characters that I don't know if he's ever going to play a huge part, and that's fine. But I just find him really, I don't know, he intrigues me. There's something about him that I just, these characters, the majority of them, there's a couple that I think feel less real, but the characters just as a whole, Robert Jordan's created this great world and these great characters that feel real, and I think he's done a really great job especially with some of these side characters. And also given the length of the books, I think giving them really, really clear characteristics like Massima. I remember him because he's the suspicious one, but he's also the one that's going to get in trouble, I'd say, because of the way he acts and the things that he says. But that Robert Jordan might get a little repetitive in how he does things, but I think given the length, the size of the world, the length of the books, I think it makes sense for this particular writing style. And it also gives it that little bit of a feel of those great epics that rely on that oral tradition of telling stories. It does have, in my mind, it's got a little bit of that feel to it. So yeah, that's just a few musings, not so much written in here, just a few of my musings there. There's little respect from the warrior Shannarians, or from the warriors, for the peaceful tinkers. And that just, again, one of those really great things of seeing those tensions, the cultural tensions between all the different cultures and the different people and ways of life that exists in this world. Does this world actually, I may have missed this, does this continent have a name, or am I just calling it the world? I know that we're going to get to see other parts. Does it have a name? Can you tell me if it has, and if I'm not supposed to know the name, don't tell me yet, if I'm meant to find out about it later. But if it does have a name and I've just missed it, can you let me know? Because I'd love to actually put a name to this place. If Leia stays long, that could prove to be a problem. So the way that the Shannarians feel about the Tinkers could be a problem if Leia sticks around. But respect is so important that I doubt it, in the sense that I don't think Leia is going to stick around. Yeah, I won't say any more on that. Does Leia recognise Perrin somehow? Or has she heard of him? There's something about the way she's interacting with him that says that suggests that maybe she knows more about him that she's letting out, or she's intrigued by him, or I wonder whether she's heard of him from other Tinkers. I wonder if the Raven was looking for them or just the wrong time, wrong place. I'm guessing that there's a little bit of a case of sending out ravens just looking, but there's also the possibility that it wasn't looking for them precisely. Anyway, Perrin's hiding from his wolf affinity, and I guess that's the tickle he's feeling in his mind, so that he's pushing it away. Did something happen to scare him, or is he just ignoring it? Something has happened in between the last book and this book, and it could be, again, a few of my musings, not necessarily written in the book, but I think I reflect back on that time jump, that 4-month where they're living their other possible lives, and I wonder whether that is the reason why Perrin is having so much trouble here and pushing his wolf affinity away. That's just a general, because in this I'm saying, did something happen to scare him, or is he just ignoring it? And then as I was reading through my notes last time, I thought, oh, I wonder if that's linked with why. I think there's also just that natural fear as well. He doesn't want that life, and that also makes sense. I really love the mythic sort of legend story start to the chapter. The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legends. That's on page 19. The land seems to be waiting for something to burst. Again on page 19. That just, as I sort of said, the chapter starts out with this tension, and I think again, it sets that tone. The land is waiting for something to burst, but these people in this small group, like this group hiding in the mountains, are waiting, ready to burst. And it's that lovely contrast between the bigger scope of things. The land seems to be waiting for something to burst. I love it. It's just such amazing poetic language. Not poetry, but that poetic sense. I love it. So nice. Chapter 2, Satan. I was surprised to see this chapter unfold from Perrin's perspective. Not the first half, but after Rand appeared. In previous books, the majority of the time if Rand was in the scene, we heard things from Rand's perspective. So this took me a bit by surprise. I wasn't ready for it, but it's really nice. We haven't seen much of Rand from others' point of view. And I think we needed to, so we could understand how everything has affected him and really get a sense of how he is acting and what he's doing. If we were seeing those same things from Rand's point of view, we would be seeing him justify things, and it's just really, really well done, but it took me a little bit by surprise in a good way. And from what I understand, that's going to continue to happen even more and more. I kind of like that the series does set out to be initially, and I'm going to say I knew this going in, that initially we were going to see a lot more of Rand, and then it was going to expand and we're going to see more from other people. And I love that. I think that's a really great way to help us immerse ourselves in the world. Start small with one character, and then we branch out in the first book and we see a few other characters, and then it continues to branch out and we don't get too much too soon, because that mirrors the villagers' experience, that they start out knowing only their village and then they expand and then it expands, and I like that. It's our experience mirrors theirs, and it's really, really nice. Back to my notes. He's not coping, not in a madness way, but in a this is too much kind of way. And I think there's going to be a fine line of telling the difference at times. I think there is some of that madness there, but I think he's almost fallen into it. And I really do think it's a little bit more of a PTSD. This is too much. My world has changed. I don't want this, that kind of thing, as opposed to the full-on madness. I'd say that's a real risk, but I don't think that's where he's at. And I think it's purposely setting us up to almost see him as experiencing this madness as a bit of a teaser, a taste of what could come. Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but this is what could happen. And anyway, it's just too much for him at this stage. He needs a teacher or a way to cope with Satan, a distraction, something. He needs something. So he's not constantly on his own. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues here, is no one knows quite how to handle him, and they're leaving him to his own devices, and he's pushing back against Moraine, and it's just, he needs a distraction. Perrin's still setting wolf guards on his dreams, but he fears them. But they influence him more and more, as seen with his desire for meat and distaste for turnips. I mean, who likes turnips, really? But, I mean, it would have been I'm assuming it's more common in their world to eat turnips. I don't like turnips. That's really all I need to say. I don't like turnips, so I can understand why Perrin doesn't like them, but it's more to do with his wolf self. Lowell thinking about writing a book. Maybe that book becomes Wheel of Time, and that's why it's so long and descriptive. And I like that, and in a good way. I mean that in the best sense of the word. But I've heard that sort of idea that, and I'm not doing this as a comparison with Lord of the Rings, other than the fact that I've heard this thing where people say the reason why the Lord of the Rings is written the way that it's written is because it's, is it Merry or Pippin? One of them telling their story back, and that's why they focus on food and the walking, because that's the things that really stuck with them, not always the bigger picture stuff. And in this sense, then I sit there and think, well, this makes sense that this is such a long story if Lowell is writing it, and that's now in my head, whether that's actually right or not. That is what my version of things are, that I'm now getting to experience this through Lowell's perspective, and so everything is now from his perspective, and that's just not really, I don't know, that's just a fun little thing that I like to think about. So anyway, poor Min. jumping back in again, sorry. Okay, I'm going off on a few tangents. I apologise. But poor Min. I always forget about the negative sides of this kind of gift, knowing people will die and not being able to help. That would suck. Suck so bad. I like the friendship here between Min and Perrin, and I like that it is so clearly a friendship. It's a really lovely thing to watch. I wonder if they'll all end up leaving with Leia and she ends up dying because of them, and that if she went without them then she would be okay. Her death feels like it's going to mean something. I don't think this is a throwaway death, and I think that's probably something I do like about Robert Jordan's deaths that we do see. If we know a character and they die, their death does mean something. It's not a random death, and I hope that continues because it helps with the reading experience. So her death feels like it's going to mean something. Maybe even her death will be connected to Rand drawing on Satan and it's getting out of control, or maybe not being able to draw on it when he needs to save her. I do wonder, it's sort of vaguely set up that something's going to happen with Rand's arc. He's not going to be able to access it. I don't know. And I wonder whether she dies because of him. I'm like pretty certain that she's going to die. I mean, Min saw it. Min's gift seems to be pretty accurate. And I love that Massima, who saw ill in everything, quote there on page 36, is utterly devoted to the legend of the dragon. So he's just devoted to Rand. And I just think it's such a cool little character. Like, it's a cool part of his character. And again, feels really real because that's what people are like. I know people like that. I know people like Massima. And I just think it's really, really cool. Anyway. Chapter 3, News from the Plain. The Children of Light, Niall's plan, is so baffling from an outside view, especially when so many soldiers could wipe out the groups declared for the dragon. News of the death of young men with even a slight resemblance to Rand will probably hit Rand quite hard, but he may also simply be numb to it or appear that way from the perspective that we're seeing, if we continue to see it through someone else's eyes. Yeah, I could imagine he appears numb, but it's really hitting him quite deep and it could set him off. Perrin's realised he's unlikely to ever go home, at least permanently. He knows he's changed too much. Oh, it's a little bit devastating to think about. I think if he let the wolves in, they might have insight into what has Moraine so on edge at this stage. I'm jumping around a little bit with my thoughts here, but I was trying to get lots. There's lots going on here. I will say Perrin realising that, or sort of having that acceptance that he's not going to be able to go home is devastating. I wish that he would let the wolves in, but I think that there needs to be some structure around that. I don't think you can just let them in without growing into it. The boys' early friendship seems purely built around geography and a bit of jealousy, especially how the others interact with girls. And I think what I'm noticing is, or what I've been thinking at this stage, I was thinking about it a fair bit in these pages, is the villagers, the Emond's 5 villagers, were they friends because they were friends, or were they friends because they all lived in the same village and there weren't that many other options? We haven't really, maybe I've talked about this before, but we just really haven't seen a lot, in my mind anyway, a lot of what connects them. And I'd like to see that more, other than just a geographical thing. Leia being hurt doesn't alleviate any worry about her dying at all. Min and the others, Perrin, want to believe it, but they do know, I think that they know that that's not what the case is, especially Min. Are the soulless land mentions the Forsaken? Are they the same thing? Or are they something else entirely? Probably something else, given the Forsaken were locked up and the soulless have been noticed or heard of in the Borderlands. I like that Perrin knows Lan questions Moraine in private. It suggests he's heard this happen with his wolf hearing. And it will help keep respect there for Lan. I think as they develop and grow, they're at an age where they question things. They're teenagers, the boys, all the Emmonsfielders, the majority of them, not Nynaeve. But they're at a point that they are questioning things. They're questioning their understanding. They're questioning why people do things a certain way. And they're questioning authority. And so I think if Lan wasn't questioning Moraine and her actions, especially the actions that don't make a lot of sense, I think a lot of respect would be lost. So it's important. Rand saw this in the Great Hunt, where Lan helped Rand get ready to meet the Merlin seat. And now Perrin is getting a little bit of a taste for that. And I think that's a really important little thing happening there. Waiting, as Perrin says, is an apt way to describe the book so far. The tension is there as we wait for the real events to begin. A lot of background needed to happen, a lot of atmospheric stuff, a lot of world building, and a lot of just that laying the path for more. And we're waiting. And again, I'm saying that, I'm not meaning it in a bad way. I don't think it's a bad thing to be sitting and reading a few chapters that I just feel like I'm waiting for something to happen. I actually think it's quite good. I like books like that, but I can see some people do struggle with that kind of thing. They want things to be happening all the time. And so I get that. Chapter 4, Shadows Sleeping. So have we just seen Mat, Rand and Perrin in a past life? That's cool. They are knitted together in the pattern. So Mat and Perrin do have a big part to play, but I like that we've been drip fed this information. We know that they're Tavern. We know that something's going to happen. We're waiting for that information. And I love that we don't know it. I really do. I think it, again, goes to that whole, the journey of us reading this book parallels the journey of the Emmonsfielders so far, that they're getting drip fed the information there. Circle is slowly expanding, just like we're getting this piece and then it expands, and it's great. But by focusing on Rand, it's easy to forget the other two at Tavern as well. And I think that comes up often. Knowing that I've finished the book, I know that I have written that a few times as I go forward. So it's a common theme. It's really easy to forget that Mat and Perrin are Tavern as well. But we will hopefully start to see more and more about that. The man in his dreams, the dark one, ? And the woman, Lanfear, I think, are tempting him with the wine. If he drinks it, does that put him on a new dark path? Is Mat being offered the same choice? Because I hate to think what he'd actually do if he's being offered the same wine. He likes to drink. Maybe he drinks and then he has to find his own way back to the light. That would be an interesting path for Mat to follow. I'm still so unsure. I have not seen anything from Mat's point of view yet, so I am so unsure about how Mat would respond to things. Yeah, I think this is an interesting thought. It is an interesting thought. Maybe he drinks, he turns to the dark side, or he's linked to the dark side, and then he has to find his way back to the light. Given what we know about Mat, this is an interesting thought. I feel like we've been handed some big puzzle pieces with not enough context to work it out yet. And this is another one of those chapters. And I'd say a lot of the dream chapters are probably going to be this way inclined, that they will have a heap of information that, if on a reread especially, they will make a lot more sense. I do enjoy the dreams, but get infuriated by them as well. But not in a bad way, just... So Lanfear, when the old dragon chose Ileana, did she take another lover? Is that something that connects her to Perrin? And is she going to cause a rift between Perrin and Rand? I'm hoping whoever is Rand's Elaine, in question marks, has a major showdown with Lanfear and defeats her. That's just Just straight off the page. That's my thoughts. I was right. The wolves are trying to warn Perrin of danger. The twisted ones. It's a plural there, so more than one. The twisted ones. Trollocs, Fades, other. In the moment, I couldn't quite remember, but yeah, I worked that out. I think even Moraine doesn't realise how important Mat and Perrin are. So going back to that idea of Tavern, I really don't think Moraine has really she was looking for the Dragon Reborn, and I don't think she really knows what to do with or what to think about Mat and Perrin. She seems to be mostly ignoring Perrin instead of mentoring him, which I think is a shame. I'd like to see him find someone who does for him what Lan did for Rand in Shinar. And I think Lan did a little bit of, like a tiny bit, not really. I think he sees Perrin as a little bit of a, I don't know, in a different way than he sees Rand. I think they're putting all their focus on Rand. And yeah. And because I had lots of thoughts, I make use of all the space. The sword. Moraine's been waiting for a sign, but what if Perrin received it and not Rand? She's not paying attention to Perrin, and given Perrin has this ability, obviously not a lot is known about the wolf men or people. Is it just men? I just feel that Moraine is ignoring a potential source of information, and she would know a lot more if she actually spoke to people and didn't act so arrogant. And this is a common theme about Moraine. I think if she just didn't think that she knew everything, or she actually didn't feel like she had to do everything on her own, then she would be better off. Chapter 5, Nightmares Walking. So much happened. It was a little bit difficult to keep up. Luckily I was reading and not watching it. It was a lot easier to stop and reread things than it would be to watch it. After all that waiting, it didn't take long for it to get started and then end. Like, it was a very short period of time, but a lot happened. Perrin's was definitely an interesting view of the fight. Imagine being a Shannarian, not understanding why or how the wolves fought, just knowing that they were there. And the wolves saved them all. I'd like the wolf Morning Mist to attach herself to Perrin's pack. Not that Perrin has a pack yet, but I want Perrin to have a pack. I know that, like, that was pointed out, and I know this. They're territorial and they don't tend to leave their area. But I want Perrin to have a pack. Whether that's an actual wolf pack, or whether he forms his own pack and they can be people. But Perrin needs a pack. It's overdue for him to start forming something of the sort. But yeah, imagine what it would be like. And I wonder if the Shannarians, especially if someone like Uno or some of the others, Uno and Massima are the only two that I think we know the names of. But if they're paying attention, are they noticing these things? Are they noticing that they've had this thing with Perrin who has these wolf eyes, and then the wolves show up? Are they putting things together, or are they missing them completely? This battle, once he's processed it, maybe what makes him open himself up to the wolves. I live in hope. Maybe he'll go searching for Elias so he can learn not to lose himself to young Bull. I'd say that's probably a really big thing. He needs to learn how to embrace it, but not lose himself to it. And I can see there's some fear there that he doesn't want to, and I get that. He needs to. I'd say Perrin has earned the respect of all the Shannarians with his actions. He killed a Fade, which took down quite a few of them anyway, of the Trollocs as well. I feel, though, that Leia's death may haunt him, even as Min tells him nothing could have changed her fate. That I think that this could have a big impact on him moving forward. Interesting, in the moment she tried to fight to save or help Perrin, and if she'd run she may have lived. So if she'd followed her tinker beliefs, she might have lived, but Perrin might not have. And was there more going on there? I just think it's really heartbreaking that she chose in that moment to not follow her tinker beliefs about being a pacifist. And it was what caused her death. But she saved Perrin, and then that was quite possibly the pattern pushing that story forward. Anyway, it's just sad. I think it's really sad when someone has to, it's really sad when someone dies for their beliefs. But it's also, it's equally devastating, if not more so, when someone dies for breaking their beliefs. Leia, she was there for such a short period of time, but she's left an impact. So then, so if she had run, she might have lived, but Perrin might not have, and that would have removed a leg of the tripod, the three of them, and that could have been catastrophic. So while we might not want her to die, I mean, it's what had to happen. But she intrigued me. Her story it intrigues me. What did she see in Perrin that made her act? What did she know? What did she see? What did she suspect? In a very short time, I found her someone who I wanted to know more about. Will we get to meet her family at some stage? Will her story come back? Will she have any relevance to the bigger picture? Or is this it? Is this sort of the impact that she's had on Perrin and Min? Is this it? And could go either way. I'm okay with either way. Moraine healing what wolves remained shows something beyond her somewhat cold exterior. I think that was a really, really great thing to do. Maybe it was a little strategic. Maybe she was hoping to do it to not offside Perrin. Maybe she did it because she's really got a soft heart. Maybe it was a thanks for what they did. I don't know. But it shows that there's more than just that cold front that she puts on. It may help Perrin like her more. And the experience might also change how they interact a little bit. And I'm happy that Lan showed Perrin such respect in the moment while protecting his secret at the same time. But maybe Min will begin to piece things together soon if she hasn't already. And the last chapter for today is chapter 6, The Hunt Begins. And what a great chapter to end on. Perrin, I love Perrin, and I just think this is one of those moments that I just absolutely love him for. Perrin standing up to Moraine is a thing of beauty. I love that Perrin and Min had their chat and acknowledged that sibling love. They've got a beautiful friendship. I'd like to see more male and female friendship novelised in all genres, not just in this book, but just across the board. I think it would be very nice to see more of. And I guess Min is warning Perrin about Celine Lanfear, given she met Lanfear at the end of the last book. I wonder if he'll take her advice. And the falcon and hawk sound cool. Looking forward to meeting a falcon and a hawk. I feel Moraine has realised her mistake in not talking more to people to a certain extent, at least in regards to their dreams. If she'd been speaking to them all along, she would have had a little bit of a better idea about the sword and Rand. I do get how she says, how is she supposed to impart years of knowledge in an afternoon? I get that. But Perrin is right that she's been withholding info that they all need. At least the Tavern need. They need this information, and she has spent enough time with them. I'm getting worked up now. She spent enough time with them that she could have spread it out and told them a little bit at a time. And Moraine, come on. I get it. I get it. But seriously, now Rand has run away, and with almost no information. He doesn't know what he's running to. He doesn't know what it means that this is the choice that he has made to run off to get this sword thing. I know. I'm going to call it a sword, okay? I'm not surprised he left when I think about it. Rand has been wallowing in self-pity, not in necessarily a bad way, just in a my life and everything I thought I knew has been turned on its head and it's too much kind of way. So it's what you'd expect from someone, and it makes sense for the Rand that we know. He's wallowing though. And people have let him do it too. He's accepted that he has a destiny, but he doesn't want it. And that's a problem. I think he's accepted it, but he's still, it's not just about not wanting it. It's about, well, let's just get this over with kind of thing. He's jumping the gun. He's not getting the information. He's not doing all the things that he needs to do. And I think going back to that idea that has come up a few times in book 1, book 2, that idea of that strategic chess game. You can't play a game like that without having as much information as possible. So I think this is, yeah, but at the same time it makes sense. Like, given what we know about Rand, where he's at, what's happened to him, it makes sense. I think it's really believable. I'm just sitting there saying, as a person, how stupid. No. He needs information. Moraine hasn't given it to him, and therefore he's run away. And I bet she's feeling a bit guilty about that. The attack and how useless he felt. Has he been given a sword to replace his Heron Blade one? I think it was destroyed, wasn't it, at the end of the last book, his Heron Blade? Has he got a new sword, or is he just sort of defenseless, as in he's got his magic but no other weapon? He felt useless and probably feels it's his fault for not leaving earlier for Tia as soon as the dreams of Calendar start. And if he was even remotely aware of how Perrin's fighting and the wolves saved them, he would have felt doubly useless. I just think, yeah, I think that whole scene of what happened with Rand during the fight, finding out that he, like, no wonder, like, he would have felt so useless, so worthless. And given we know that Rand just wants to save other people, everything that he's done seems to be based around the fact that he's doing it to save other people, especially Gwen, but his friends. He cares about Perrin. He would have seen, I don't know if he actually met Leia, but he would have done anything to protect these people who he feels responsible for, rightly or wrongly. He feels responsible for them. And so, yeah, it makes sense. I'd say Moraine needs Perrin with her for his tracking skills, but also because he's the only one Rand kind of trusts at this stage. Moraine has to deal with the reality that if she's going after Rand and he doesn't want her to, he could kill her. I would say he might not do it on purpose, but he could. Having Perrin there, having any one of the Two Rivers with her is going to help her get through to him if there's any problems. Will they see the Shannarans again in this book, or is it goodbye for now? And I bet they try and recruit people. I think that actually makes a lot of sense character-wise, like for them, that they're going to go and try and recruit people to the Dragon Reborn's cause, and that's just amusing to think about. Just, I love it. So there we go. That is the prologue up to chapter 6. I'm just going to warn you with these videos on the Dragon Reborn, I seemed to have a lot more to say, so the videos might get a little bit on the longer side. I apologize. Feel free to watch them at double speed, but I also don't want to leave things out, because I think in the past I've left some things out that I did actually have written down, and I'm trying not to do that. So that's just a little warning. These might get a little on the longer side. I'll try and keep my thoughts so they're not repetitive. But yes, as I said, I'm loving it. I'm really looking forward to going through this journey, talking about it, going back over what I experienced. and just seeing seeing the kinds of things that I started picking up on early that either paid off or didn't pay off over the course of the book. And yeah, get down in the comments. As always, I'm looking forward to chatting with you in the comments. Again, let me know. This is about my experience of reading the book. I am going to experience it in a different way to you. So get down and tell me if you can remember the first time you read this, if this is the first time you're reading it. Did you experience these same feelings? Were you as frustrated with Moraine as I am? Do you love Perrin and as much? Were you heartbroken when Leia died? All of these kind of things. I want to know how you experienced it. Get down in the comments and chat. Otherwise, subscribe to my channel to keep up to date when the new videos come out, and like this video so that I know that you enjoyed it or I know that you've been here. And I will be back again on Friday with the next 7-ish chapters.